So good day, everyone. Welcome to another session on advanced research methods. Today, we will discuss research methodology as it is the core of the course on advanced research methods. Particularly, we will tackle quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. So, in summary, the discussion will present the concepts of research methodology. As we all know, science as a way of searching for truth and knowledge has its procedure to guide its data gathering process. So I explained that in the overview that I had discussed previously, and research method to be used depends on the nature of the problem or inquiry that needs to be addressed. Okay. I hope that that is clear to everyone. Okay. So an appropriate research method carries the credibility of the research's findings and conclusion, not to be questioned, so that it will stand scrutiny through time. So the research method describes the process followed in collecting and analyzing data. So in the work of Creswell, in 2003. By the way, Creswell is an authority in qualitative research, having published books pertaining both quantitative but more on qualitative researches. Equipped that researcher needs to focus on 3 ways when carrying out research. Okay. And what are these? Okay. So the 3 approaches, okay, which are number 1, quantitative, 2, qualitative, and then we have the mixed method. So the use of proper procedures, tools, measurements, variables, and techniques, okay, will be discussed in particular in this session of ours. So more specifically, the objectives are as follows. Okay. Number 1, explain the significance of methodology in research. 2, to be able to identify, okay, the differences, okay, between and among the 3 approaches that I have mentioned for research methodology. And number 3, to be able to identify in more specific terms types of quantitative or quantitative, qualitative researches as well as mixed method. So we begin by centering our discussion on the research method and research methodology. So to start with, let's define research method as having to deal with methods or techniques used for the conduct of research. Okay. So in the work of Iguanigu in 2016, research method is defined as a set of systematic technique used in research. Note, systematic technique. Okay, so it is a strategy, okay, that observes system. Okay, so on that note, it is to be understood that the research method as a guide, okay, describes and analyzes methods. It throws more light on their limitations and resources, clarifies their presuppositions and consequences, relating their potentialities to the twilight zone at the frontiers of knowledge. Okay. So they are essentially planned, scientific, and value neutral. Okay. Take note, the research method, okay, should be essentially planned. Okay, it should be scientific, and of course, value neutral. So it will also include theoretical procedures, experimental studies, numerical schemes, statistical approaches, and the like. So methods for researchers, okay, help in collecting of samples, data, and of course, find a solution to a problem. Okay, recalling what we have for our initial understanding about research, okay, as an inquiry-based activity. So we start with a problem. Okay, we identify the problem. We are guided by research question or questions. So particularly scientific research methods, call for explanations based on collected facts, measurements, and observations rather than reasoning alone. Okay? So they accept only those explanations which experiments can verify. So that is what research method all about. Now, as we discuss further, okay, it is also important to have a deepened understanding on how research method differs from research methodology. Okay, so then we talk about research methodology as a systematic way to solve a problem. So on a general note, okay, methodology, okay, refers to the systematic way, okay, of solving a problem. Okay? So it is a science of studying how research is to be carried out, and essentially the procedures by which the researchers go about their work of describing, explaining, and predicting phenomena. And it is, okay, in summation, the study of methods. It is the study of methods by which knowledge is gained. Okay? And according to Rajasekar et al. In 2013, methodology aims to give the work plan of the research. So that is the fundamental distinction between research method and research methodology. So needless to say that research method is the central focus of the term research methodology. Okay? So then we now talk about classification of research by method. Classification, okay, of research by method, okay, would deal with the three fundamental approaches. We have quantitative research method, we have qualitative research method, and of course, we have the mixed research method. Okay, we start with the quantitative research method. Okay, so when we talk about quantitative research method, okay, it is where the collection of numerical data can be transformed into statistics. Okay, and particularly, okay, in 2011, the Franco mentioned that it is used to quantify attitudes, opinions, behaviors, and other defined variables, okay, and generalized results from a larger sample population. Okay, it also deals with measurable data, okay, to formulate facts and uncover patterns in research. Okay, so if a researcher is playing with the numbers, okay, it means the researcher have a good knowledge of interpretations of the different statistical treatments. For example, standard deviation, okay, correlation. Okay. Ed is very much into calculation. Okay. So in this method, data collections are done through various forms, such as online or paper surveys. Okay. We have mobile or kiosk survey, even sometimes face-to-face interviews, okay, online polls, okay, and telephone interviews are also considered part of it. Okay, You might also want to add the use of Google Forms, especially in the so-called new normal, when the certain restrictions barred the researcher from gathering the data in the earlier mentioned examples or types. So that's quantitative research method in general. Now moving on, its counterpart called qualitative research method is defined as an approach that deals with the understanding of underlying reasons, opinions, and motivations by providing insights into the problem or developing ideas and hypotheses for potential quantitative research. So, in contrast to the quantitative research method, qualitative primarily deals with having to understand the reasons, opinions, and motivations, and for basis of developing hypotheses, for future quantitative research. It is a method, therefore, of observation that is gathered through non-numerical data. So the type of research includes various forms of collecting data through case studies, interviews, FG, or focus group. For example, group of discussion with participation and observation. So in the work of Creswell in 2003, it was pointed out that qualitative is mainly inductive, meaning the discussion begins with the micro discussion or the specific discussion to generating what we call as macro perspectives. So it is where the inquirer generates meaning from the data collected, usually from field works. So that is qualitative. And finally, we have the combination of quantitative and qualitative, termed as mixed research method. So it is a methodology for conducting research that involves collecting, analyzing, and integrating quantitative and qualitative research. So this approach is used when the integration provides a better understanding of the research problem than either alone, like for example, purely results of experiments or surveys, as in the case of quantitative, or in qualitative such as focus group, discussions, and interviews. So this sort of approach provides a greater comprehensive understanding of the research problem. It will aid in a detailed understanding rather than focusing separated on the quantitative or qualitative approaches. And on top of that, it offset the weaknesses of both researches too. But the design of this research can be very complex. And you will understand more about the complexity of mixed methods in the last set of oral presentation for the mixed method research types. So these methods are only suggested to understand the phenomenon in depth and greatly impact the researchers. So these are the three methods in classifying research. Okay. Quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. So in this slide, okay, we sum up our discussion about the three. And as provided by Creswell in 2014, the differences of the three methods, okay, quantitative, qualitative, and the mixed. Okay. So we start with the first row, okay, meaning the selection or the choosing of the method. Okay. Note that in quantitative methods, in quantitative research, rather, sorry, okay, the method, okay, is predetermined, meaning even before you undertake, okay, the more specific steps, okay, in the research process, such as data gathering, you already know that you will be delving on quantitative research. So it is predetermined. Like if you do a survey, okay, you all already, okay, have contemplated on uh, on crafting an instrument, particularly survey, in order for you to be able to gather data numerically and have it subjected to statistical analysis later on. While for qualitative, the method emerges as soon as you commence, okay, with the gathering of data, which is primarily facilitated by series of interviews. So that's essentially the distinction between quantitative and qualitative in terms of selection of methods. Okay. Then what about for mixed methods? Therefore, it combines both predetermined and emerging, okay, to address the quantitative component and the qualitative component of the study. So that is the first set of distinction. Okay. Then we have instrumentation. Okay. So what about in terms of data gathering tool? When we talk about instrument, we talk about data gathering tool. Okay. So for quantitative research, okay, instruments are based on questions. Okay. So it's definite. Okay. You would be gathering, okay, exact answers, okay, to specific questions. And that will make it different in qualitative research because we are aided by open-ended questions. So if you will recall, based on the presentations of the doctoral candidates, okay, in the series of oral examinations, okay, you have attended, okay, that in qualitative research, particularly phenomenology, usually there's only one or two questions compared to quantitative, say, correlation study that has three or more research questions. So that's how we differentiate quanti and quali in terms of instrumentation. As for mixed methods, okay, it will be combination of open and close-ended questions. Okay, so it's combination of open and close-ended questions. Okay, so that will be for the second area of distinction. Then we have the focus, okay, or the subject that is targeted in the study. Okay, so for quantitative methods, it will be delving on performance data, attitude data, observational data, so that's data, and census data. Okay, for qualitative, okay, obviously it will be those that which results from interview, observation, documentary analysis, even audiovisual data. Okay, and mixed methods will combine all of them into one. Therefore, it will be uh, it will be uh, using multiple forms of data, in order to draw on all possibilities. And then the fourth one, we have analysis, how analysis is observed. Okay, so as I have mentioned earlier, for quantitative, it is aided by statistical analysis, textual and image analysis for qualitative, and combination for mixed methods. Interpretation, on the other hand, okay, therefore, statistical analysis is to be coupled with statistical interpretations, while text and image analysis should be supported by thematic, okay, or pattern interpretations. Okay, and mixed methods, okay, observe interpretation across databases. So that's how we, in summation, okay, in summarized form, okay, compare, okay, the three types of methods, okay, such as quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. So after having identified the classifications of research by method, we now proceed to understanding research as a scientific method. Okay, we have pointed out earlier in the previous lessons, okay, pertaining to the review of concepts, that one of the characteristics of research is its scientific nature. Okay, so it will be that which is concerned with the application of scientific method. So when do we say that research is a scientific, okay, inquiry? Okay, so the following will the following postulates, okay, will serve for basis of generalizing that research, okay, is as is involved with the application of scientific method. Okay, so we have number one, it relies on empirical evidence. Okay, so remember that we merely depend on data that we gather based on the observation, okay, that we have using our senses. So that makes it supported by empirical evidence. Okay. Number two, it utilizes relevant concepts. Okay, so this is what I would like to emphasize, okay, among our doctoral, even masteral students, that in the conduct of the study, okay, you should have, okay, a concrete, okay, framework, both theoretical and conceptual, upon which you anchor your study from. Your ideas, okay, in so far as dissertation project is concerned, should have, okay, a solid, okay, foundation on concepts and theories. Okay? So it is very quintessential that any proposal, for that matter, should be anchored on robust conceptual and theoretical concepts, theoretical frameworks. So that's number 2. Number 3, it is committed to only objective considerations. While in research, opinions may be considered, okay, it should be backed up by cold facts. It should be substantiated by objective basis. You should not be merely talking about opinions. It should be objective. Okay? It should be based on data that you gather, based on the observations that results from the exercise of your senses. So it should be objective. Number 4, it presupposes ethical neutrality. That is, it aims at nothing but making only adequate and correct statements about population objects. Okay? So it should be free of bias. Okay? It should be bias free. Or as much as possible to put to minimum, okay, any bias, any biases, okay, consistent with ethical neutrality. Okay? And then it results into probabilistic predictions. Okay? So when we talk about probabilistic predictions, it will be anchored, no, on certain propositions, okay, that are that can be validated, that can be tested. We talk about probabilities, probabilistic predictions. Okay, so it is more or less into what we term as guesstimations. Okay, so it's a portmanteau word, okay, that combines guessing and estimating. So which would suggest, okay, application of science, okay, in so far as prediction is concerned. Okay, so that is probabilistic predictions. Its methodology is made known to all concerned for critical scrutiny and are for use, okay, in testing the conclusions through replications. One of the defining characteristics of research is its replicability. Okay, replicability meaning the ability of being validated, okay, or verified. Okay, so replication actually is a fusion of the words repetition and duplication, but the meaning derived, no, for replication is neither to repeat nor to duplicate. Ulitin ko. Okay? Replication was coined using the words repetition and duplication, but the meaning of which, okay, is not any of the two base words. Actually, in research, repetition and duplication are not allowed. Okay? You should not, or you ought not to repeat nor duplicate completed studies. Then what about replication? Actually, replication is having a rerun of previous studies with certain modifications in order to validate, in order to verify results of previous studies. So the more replication that we do, the more uh, acceptable, okay, the findings will be. Okay, so that is number 6. Number 7, it aims at formulating most general axioms or what can be termed as scientific theories. So remember that theories are to be tested. Okay, so it is also in the application of scientific in research, scientific method in research, that we generate or extend, okay, scientific theories. So that's the postulates, okay, that we have to support the explanation of research as a scientific method. Now, let's proceed to the discussion of types of research. Okay. So there are several criteria for the classification of research types, okay, which include method of research and goal of research. Okay, so research can also be classified by research method used. Okay, that's according to the work of Iguanigu in 2016. However, okay, many research projects use methods from more than one class. So sometimes it's combination. So you have to also be in the know of the diversity or the plethora of science of research methods, which is why in our class, okay, I have you, okay, for discussion of the multifarious, okay, forms of research methods that may be considered by masteral and doctoral students. So we begin with action research. Okay, so this type of research is mostly essential in applied research. Remember that one of the most fundamental way to categorize research is to look into the result of the study. So based on the result, there are 2 classifications. Okay, so you will recall in my in one of my video lectures, okay, the dimensions and classifications of research. Okay, one way to classifying research is by way of looking into the result of the study. So based on that classification, we have 2. We have basic and applied, correct? So basic is the conduct of research for knowledge sake, whereas applied, based on its on the meaning of its base word, okay, application, okay, so the results of the study has direct, okay, application. A more specific type of applied research is action research, where action research, okay, primarily aims to determine, okay, the extent of impact or effectiveness of an intervention. Okay, so it requires implanting recommended changes to a process, okay, bearing in mind to solve a problem and researching to determine the effectiveness of identified changes. For example, in the field of education, we have, for example, teaching and learning, particularly improving performance of students. So traditionally, we deliver lessons, okay, particularly in the basic ed, okay, by way of chalk talk, okay, which is the most traditional way of delivering lessons. Okay. So in action research, we think of ways by which we can elevate, okay, the performance. by introducing new approaches like integration of technology, okay? Say use of PowerPoint or even uh, social media, okay? Say or electronic sources that will enhance, okay, the performance of his students. In business, okay, maybe we can look into how we can improve generation of income, okay, by having to introduce, okay, a particular strategy. And with action research, okay, you will note of the uh, differences, okay, between before, okay, and now that you have introduced something new or an intervention. Okay, so that is action research. It aims at solving an identified problem based on recommendations made to a process. Okay, so now we proceed to creative research. Okay, so it involves developing new theories, new procedures, and new inventions, and is used to some extent in all fields, okay, including, of course, criminology, business, education, even IT, even in more specific specializations like cybersecurity or, say, public health. In contrast to experimental research, creative research, okay, is innovative research, okay, which is much less structured, okay, and cannot always be pre-planned. Unlike in the case of experiment, okay, there is proper planning, okay, required in carrying out experimentations. So creative research, okay, includes both practical and theoretical research. For example, in the agricultural entrepreneurship, okay, you design and develop solar-powered mechanical dryer for small-scale, say, cacao processing. Okay, we have, for example, the design and development of a particular website. Okay, we have, say, mobile-based, okay, recognition system, okay, using image processing techniques, no, in concerns like production, okay, or, say, in disaster risk reduction. Okay, so these are examples of creative research. Then what about descriptive research? Okay, so simply, descriptive research describe the facts, okay, and characteristics of a given population or area of interest systematically, factually, and accurately. Okay, say, for example, graduate student satisfaction on, say, research advising practices. Okay. We have extent of attainment, okay, of intended program attributes of, say, BS Business Administration, okay, or tracking the employment and employability characteristics of graduates of, say, criminology, nursing, even in the graduate school, or in the BS HRM or BS Tourism. Okay? So these are examples of descriptive research. No? And if you will note of the more specific types of descriptive research that I have had part of another lecture that I had already uploaded, no? There are several other subtypes of descriptive, and some of which are actually made part of this discussion. Like, for example, correlation research. Okay, so correlation research is one that investigates the extent to which one factor corresponds with the variations in one or more factors based on correlational coefficient. Okay, so let's have it simplified. Correlation, also referred to as associational study, is where you relate, okay, at least two variables, okay, and two basic requirements, okay, for it to be a correlational study or associational study, okay, are: number one, at least one dependent variable, and two, at least one independent variable. So again, so based on our previous discussion, variable is any characteristic having two or more mutually exclusive properties. In correlation study, the two fundamental classifications of variable are independent and dependent variable. So that are the two variable types that you relate in correlation or association studies. I said requirement is at least one for each for it to be a correlation or associational study. For example, we have predictors of management performance of, say, higher educational institutions. Okay. We have correlation of, say, leadership style and productivity. Okay. So, in the last example that I have given, okay, there are two variables considered in the study: leadership style on one hand and productivity on the other. So, as you will recall, okay, what you have discussed in quantitative techniques or statistics in research, in correlation study or in general in quantitative studies, you begin with operationalization of the variables in order for you to be able to determine the measures that you will have for the variables under the study. So operationalization means deciding on what will be the measures for the variables under study. So relating it to the example that we have on hand, we have leadership style and productivity, organizational productivity. No, not organizational, but yeah, individual productivity. Okay, so we need to firstly decide on how we will have to measure leadership style and of course productivity, and then have it correlate. So that is correlation study. Okay, so we also observe correlation in prediction. Okay, in prediction, like for example, we have multiple regression in order to determine the predictive ability, say for example of certain factors in relation to a particular variable. Okay, and then we have experimental research. Okay, so we have the cornerstone of science is experimental and creative. The variables of interest are identified, and the researcher seeks to determine the effect of changes in the independent variable on the dependent variable. Okay, so we have different types of experimental research. Okay, so we have the pre-test and the post-test, no, randomized. Remember that one of the basic characteristics of experimental research is, number one, it is purely observing randomization. Okay, and of course, in order to eliminate bias. Okay? In order to eliminate bias. Okay, so an example of a true experimental design may be say for example the economic benefits of a particular type of produce. Okay, or we talk about growth and yield performance of particular crops in agricultural entrepreneurship. Okay, so other examples like effects of using videos, okay, in the delivery of lessons on technical subjects like physics, okay, in order to develop higher order thinking skills. Okay, so these are experimental research.
Excuse po. I just want to know po if nandun pa rin tayo. Sorry, kasi kanina po yung